let's see here. Welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us today. We have just a ton of stuff. This is the first day of early voting in the state of Arkansas. And nationally, though, folks, there what appears to be, huge, at least a PR crisis that's happening. Here, listen to this. A headline: Growing caravan of migrants pushes deeper into Mexico. It's now up to, 7,000 people, according to the front page of the Drudge Report. They got through Guatemala into Mexico, and now they're heading for the United States border. Joining us now to talk about this, we have a national immigration expert, also the director of the Remembrance Project. Maria Espinoza is back with us. Maria, good morning to you.
Good morning, Paul. Thanks so much for having me on again.
Yes, it's always great to have you on. What's your take on this? I mean, we're 14 days from an election. Does that have anything to do with the timing of the 7,000 person strong caravan?
Oh, absolutely it does. In fact, remember the Honduran and El Salvadorian and Guatemalan leaders were here in Washington, D.C. last week, and their response to President Trump's cutting some of their foreign aid last year was simply that they will do what they can, but they want to be able to understand if they're going to get more funding in the future. So I think this is all political. This is certainly trying to pressure America, sort of extortion, in my opinion. And the day after Vice President Pence met with these other country leaders, that's when the caravan took off from Honduras. And now we're looking here. I believe that Guatemala and Mexico allowed this caravan to push through. I mean, we know that Mexico has stronger laws and enforces its southern border, much stronger than America enforces its southern border. And they will shoot you if you cross illegally into Mexico. And here they're allowed to come through. And make their way right up to the United States. And guess what? We take care of them. Not only do we give their countries U.S. foreign aid for specifically these types of problems and violence, economic purposes, but we now are being forced to take care of their citizens, those citizens that they no longer want in their country. So, yes, this is absolutely, number one, orchestrated and intentional, and yes, the midterms is key here.
Yeah, we have people that want to hurt the Trump administration domestically by hurting him politically. We've seen that with China, what they're trying to do to influence the midterms in states that Donald Trump won with, targeting on the farmers and everything else. And that affects us here in Arkansas. And now we have these countries south of the border. It seems they're doing the same thing. So let me ask you this. We've got Mexico. You say their immigration laws are pretty strict. They will shoot you if they cross the border. But we also know, just by general, consensus, Mexican officials are pretty easy to bribe. So my question is, do you think George Soros or some of these ultra-left, are they bribing the Mexican officials to let the migrants through?
Oh, that's hands down, I believe so, absolutely. And again, Mexico welcomes them, in my opinion. They'll, a few years back, remember they gave them a 3-day visa to cross through their country only on the terms that they would not remain in Mexico. So they're helping them get across. And now I'm looking at an article where the federal government is sending police officers to the southern border. 2 727 Boeing planes filled supposedly with federal police officers. My question is, when they get there, are they going to fill these planes with the members of this caravan and bring them up to, closer to our border? I don't trust Mexico. Obviously, they push out their citizens, and a few years ago I was doing some research, and learned that 2/3 of the illegal aliens at that time who were living in the United States were from Mexico, and they came from 6 to 7 states in Mexico. So that tells me that these individuals were intentionally
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, folks. It's Thursday. Welcome to the program. Thanks for starting the beginning of your day with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine. So glad that you're with us. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. We got a lot of news to get to today. We're going to start with, obviously, the most pressing, which is this pipe bomb story. And, of course, the media blaming President Trump for it, which is very predictable. At the top of the next hour, we'll be talking with state representative, or I guess Republican candidate for state representative. I believe it's in District 11. Let me look here. Let's see, I had this. No, here it is. Ricky Lattimore. Ricky Lattimore will be in studio. Yeah, District 11. I'll be talking with him. Excited about that. See, what else do we have? Oh, also at the bottom of the next hour, we'll be talking with the president of the Club for Growth, Mr. David McIntosh, will be on the program. I actually sat down with him yesterday, but we'll hear that. And it was really good, the importance of the midterm elections, what it means. And so we'll be discussing that coming up in the next hour as well, or playing that interview for you. All right, so let's start at the top. Last night, in the wake of multiple pipe bomb packages being sent to former government officials, Democrats, Obama, Hillary Clinton, etc. In the wake of this, President Trump held a rally in Wisconsin. It was a scheduled rally, and it was actually very impressive seeing Air Force One. It was in a hangar, but you had Air Force One in the background there, and it was obviously, once again, a packed rally. The optics right now politically for the country are extremely interesting. I just want you to know something. If you're listening to this, you need to know one thing this morning. We are living in probably the most interesting times politically that we will ever live in terms of, the American political storyline or whatever. It's absolutely captivating every day what's going on. Now, not playing with what the media wants you to play, marching to their beat. I'm just saying, if you know how to read between the lines, if you know what's really going on behind the scenes here, it's actually quite fascinating. And so we live in extremely interesting times, which is actually a negative thing to say to somebody. The old saying, "May you live in interesting times," is not a good thing, but that's where we are right now. And for somebody, in my profession, it makes things, very easy to do a radio show, let's just say. So you have these pipe bombs that go out, and the media immediately says, well, we obviously know why they went out. It's because of Donald Trump. And excuse me for not, what I first thought was, I was like, they really want to blame Trump to make him seem like he wants violence against the media because, now, and hear me out, because that is what they were doing with Khashoggi. This Washington Post journalist that, according to some reports, was really a Muslim Brother sympathizer that doesn't really like Saudi Arabia's, reform, reformer, this Mohammed bin Salman guy who actually is letting women drive and doing things like that. He's more of a, no, we need like a straight-up Sharia law theocracy in Saudi Arabia. Anyway, according to reports, he's a Muslim Brother sympathizer. But no, he was a Washington Post journalist, and he got cut up in a Saudi Arabian embassy in Turkey, and it was the worst thing in the world. It was news flash. There's a guy that's been dismembered in the Middle East. That's never happened before, and Donald Trump doesn't like journalists, and Donald Trump doesn't like the media. He says that the fake news is the enemy of the American people, and then he doesn't care that Khashoggi is dead, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That was the attempt. That is what we've had. A week ago, Hillary Clinton was telling the media openly, we will not be civil with the other side. That was a week ago. The Khashoggi thing was what failed to be laid at President Trump's feet like this is somehow your fault. Oh, and you may be a Saudi Arabian agent now, too. Then you have this caravan of people. 7,000 people, oh my gosh, they're going to get here right as the election happens. You're going to have a big publicity stunt. You're going to have cameras on the border. There's going to be a big standoff. President Trump then says, hey, I may send troops to the border, but then the American people, there are people, political commentators on both sides that say, oh, wow, you know what, this open borders thing, not a good thing for the Democrats. This march of 7,000 people, this is actually hurting the Democrat Party. It's hurting it. And that's that up until yesterday, that was the news. And there was no coverage of the 7,000 caravan because of what happened, because there was a suspicious package that was sent to CNN. There were these bombs that first on Monday was sent to George Soros' house that was hand-delivered. Sent to George Soros' house, hand-delivered, then sent to, and it's all connected. The FBI is on this. Surely they're going to find who did this. And now this is the story. And it's going to be the story for the next 5 days. It's going to be the story on the Sunday talk shows. Donald Trump is responsible for whoever sent these packages, whatever motivation they had, it's Donald Trump's fault. We have been here before. When the federal building in Oklahoma City was destroyed, it was Rush Limbaugh's fault. I want you to remember that. When Oklahoma City bombing happened, President Clinton and the Democrats, they blamed talk radio for inspiring, what was it? Was it McVeigh to go and blow the building up? We've been here before. This has been done before, okay? But here's how President Trump started his rally last night. Joe, pull this up, YouTube. This is a clip on YouTube. I couldn't find it really anywhere else but from the Right Side Broadcasting Network that follows Donald Trump around from rally to rally. They do really good work. This is Donald Trump, the very beginning of the rally last night in Wisconsin. Listen.
With the thousands of loyal, hardworking American patriots who, by the way, gave President Trump a win. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Incredible people. I want to begin tonight's rally by addressing the suspicious devices and packages that were mailed to current and former high-ranking government officials. My highest duty, as you know, as president, is to keep America safe. That's what we talk about. That's what we do. The federal government is conducting an aggressive investigation, and we will find those responsible, and we will bring them to justice, hopefully very quickly. Any acts or threats of political violence are an attack on our democracy itself. No nation can succeed that tolerates violence or the threat of violence as a method of political intimidation, coercion, or control. We all know that. Such conduct must be fiercely opposed and firmly prosecuted. We want all sides to come together in peace and harmony. We can do it. We can do it. We can do it. It'll happen. More broadly, there's much we can do to bring our nation together. For example, those engaged in the political arena must stop treating political opponents as being morally defective. Have to do that.
Stop.
The language.
Yeah. We're gonna. I just want to make a point here. This is how the left engages. President Trump, what he is saying here, is going to drive the left nuts. It already has driven the left nuts. When the left engages with Republicans at this point, they engage on the basis that they are a better person than the person on the right. That's how they engage now. They don't want to have a civil discourse. They automatically assume that the other person is the single source of evil in the world, and that's how we're going to approach this political debate. Because they assume that President Trump is what the media has told them. He is a Nazi. He's a or he's a KGB agent. Now they're trying to say that he wants the fake news media to be murdered and have violence. Violent acts perpetrated against them. Keep going here. President Trump from Wisconsin last night.
Of moral condemnation and destructive routine. These are arguments and disagreements that have to stop. No one should carelessly compare political opponents to historical villains, which is done often. It's done all the time. Got to stop. We should not mob people in public spaces or destroy public property. There is one way to settle our disagreements. It's called peacefully at the ballot box. That's what we want. That's what we want. As part of a larger national effort to bridge our divides and bring people together, the media also has a responsibility to set a civil tone and to stop the endless hostility and constant negative and oftentimes false attacks and stories. Have to do it. Have to do it. They've got to stop. Bring people together. We're just 13 days away from a very, very important election. It's an election of monumental, just if you look at it, monumental importance, isn't it? Wouldn't you say monumental importance? There are dramatic differences between our two political parties, that we know. It is essential for democracy to draw a sharp contrast between the two different platforms put before the American people. And we have a chance.
We may get back to some of that later in the show, but that's how President Trump began the rally. He addressed this terrible thing that happened with the bombs being delivered, and of course the media is saying that it's all his fault. Going over here to Breitbart, look at this. Media blasts Trump for leading hate parade, not blaming himself for bomb scares. Tony Lee of Breitbart, President Donald Trump on Wednesday evening offended the media when he said they also have a responsibility to set a civil tone and stop the endless hostility and oftentimes false attacks and stories. After CNN and other prominent Democrats received suspicious packages, the left-wing and establishment media blasted Trump for not accepting responsibility for the bomb scares and actually accused Trump of leading the hate parade. On CNN, contributor April Ryan slammed Trump's divisive rhetoric and said the bomb threats were collateral damage. CNN anchor Chris Cuomo accused Trump of leading the hate parade that is dividing the country, and fellow network anchor Don Lemon said Trump did not have the testicular fortitude to accept responsibility and repeatedly emphasized that all of the targets, CNN, Hillary Clinton, former President Barack Obama, and former Obama CIA Chief John Brennan and Representative Maxine Waters, were those Trump has lashed out at with hateful rhetoric. What about Steve Scalise? What about Maxine Waters telling people to mob others in public spaces? What about the fact that just this week, possibly the next Speaker of the House, the Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, had a boulder thrown through his window? Right? I mean, let's just be clear here. Before this happened with the pipe bombs, the prevailing opinion, the growing opinion among the American people was that it's the left who is a mob. It's the left that's resorting to violence. It's the left who's resorting to these tactics that traditionally a vast majority of the American people reject. You had, at the same time this was happening, you have stories that Republican early voting is vastly outpacing Democrat voting. And that's why there is a growing concern here. There's a lot of skeptical people about what's really going on. Okay? For example, so the left and the media, they immediately say it must be Trump's fault that all these pipe bombs were sent. Then you have some people on the right. Let's go to James Woods. Let's go to actor James Woods. He's a conservative, right? He doesn't really get much work in Hollywood because he's such a conservative. And this is what he tweeted. He said this: "The sending of bombs is a threat to the very foundation of our republic." We can agree. "That people would seriously suggest such an act could be a false flag stunt is inappropriate. It is sad, however," he goes on, "that Democrat mob behavior of late could prompt one to believe such a thing is possible." Now, James Woods going into dangerous territory here. You know why? Because he's saying not just the F word. He's not saying the F word. He's saying the double F word. You're not supposed to say the double F word when things like this happen. You're not supposed to say, hey, what he's essentially saying is, yeah, there's some people out here that think that the Democrats might have sent themselves bombs in the mail. Now, notice that none of the bombs went off. And this is the party of the weather underground. When they want bombs to go off, they go off. It's the party of the weather underground. They know what they're doing. But James Woods here saying, listen, this is people. It's inappropriate to call it a double F word, false flag, inappropriate. But the Democrat mob behavior as of late, you can understand why some people would immediately jump to those conclusions. Not to mention, if you reference all of the political realities I just summed up with the stories in the news cycle as of late, Khashoggi, the caravan, all of that stuff, the Kavanaugh hearings that were really bad. And you know what? There's one other piece of evidence here. There's one other, this is we are in a time where no one believes anybody. It's very scary. Nobody accepts, nobody who claims to be the arbiter of the truth has any credibility anymore. Because we just don't believe, because the media has lied to us so many times before. Right? Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand something. I want you to remember something in the midst of all of this. The Democrat Party paid for a fake dossier to be made. They submitted it to the FBI. People in the higher-ups of the FBI knew it was phony. They leaked the contents of it. Then they used the news stories written from the leak to then submit to the FISA court. And it was all bogus. It was all bogus, and it helped launch the Russian investigation into where we are today. That is an intentional deception. The facts are out there. The mainstream media ignores it. They're not going to tell you about it. But these are the people that we're dealing with. These are the tactics that they're willing to do. And that's why that James Woods tweet and whatever other people are saying, you got people on the left, oh, it's Trump that caused the bombs. You got people on the right that are saying, this is awfully convenient. We're going to take a break. Let me know what you think in the Facebook comments, the YouTube comments. I'd love to hear from you. Facebook.com/Conduit News. Go to our Conduit News YouTube channel and subscribe and click the little bell to receive notifications. Back in a minute.
Encouraged to cross illegally, and we also have seen the pamphlets that was discovered back in the 90s. They were very basic, almost like comic strip pamphlets telling their citizens on how to get to the border, hire a coyote, what to wear, what to do, what to say with an agent finds you, and where to go to get help here in the United States. So.
And they also give them scripts, say this particular legal phrase, and now, you'll be admitted into the country, and you'll have a court date.
The credible fear.
Yeah, yeah. We're talking with Maria Espinoza. Check out her stuff. It's the remembranceproject.org. It's an organization founded to remember those who have been murdered by illegal aliens. Like preventable deaths is the key there. If we would secure our border, have a immigration policy that actually works. Speaking of securing the border, Maria, I would like to know what you think about President Donald Trump's statement. He says, listen, these people are...
Let's face it, times are tough for the Arkansas General Assembly. They're all waiting for the spotlight exposing public corruption to end, so they won't be under so much scrutiny. And during this time, what if you're a legislator and you need money? What if you're slapped with a huge expense? What if your check for consultant services is late this month? Or maybe you just need extra cash now until payday. When that happens, you can't wait. Hi, I'm Bobby Blackmail for the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank, your trusted source to over 135 lenders to get you short-term cash fast. Use the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank today, and you can have up to $12,500 cash in your checking account tomorrow. Dried-up bribes no longer coming from Medicaid entities? Handled. Extra cash until your hopeful acquittal? Done. And you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get extra cash. Just be an elected official and be comfortable with the status quo, and we'll connect you with a fellow legislator who is ready to loan. It's quick and easy. And don't worry if you can't make the payments, because the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank is designed to help you get through these tough economic times. There are other ways you can pay off your debt, like by voting the way the establishment wants, or by rewarding some with committee chairmanships. So forget about overdraft fees and the spirit of covetousness that sometimes overwhelms the best of lawmakers. Just remember, the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank for short-term cash between colleagues when you need it fast.
Some transactions have long-term consequences.
Paul Harrell, parody. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Also, somebody reminded me, didn't you have Eric Holder that was recently saying that he disagreed with Michelle Obama? Remember that? Michelle Obama saying, when they go low, we go high. He says, no, when they go low, we kick them. Maxine Waters. Form a mob, basically. Form a crowd. You see somebody out, form a crowd. I guess I think for the left to claim that it's Trump's inflammatory rhetoric and they're ignoring the inflammatory rhetoric on the left is preposterous. It's preposterous. Did I read where Jeff Flake said that Donald Trump needs to, as a part of all of this, because you got to count on Jeff Flake. He really, really wants to be the mainstream media. He wants to be their token dissenting Republican. And so, but he said that what really needs to happen out of all of this is that Trump has to denounce the chance of lock her up. Whenever he mentions Hillary Clinton at his rallies, he needs to denounce the audience that says lock her up. Okay? Yeah. You know what? I don't think he can make a promise like that. It's called it's the name of a company. It's called Uranium One. Yeah. It's called Uranium One, and I when all the details are known. I mean, listen. Just go read that book, Clinton Cash. Folks, it's a criminal enterprise. It's a criminal enterprise. And they want to talk about Donald Trump's taxes and his dad? Give me a break. Give me a break. If it were not for double standards, the left would have no standards at all. And that's the truth right now. Man. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, reset here. We've got some stake news to get into. There's more developments between the Senate race in Northwest Arkansas between State Representative Greg Leding and Don Clements, and the interaction the aggressive action Greg Leding took towards her. We'll have more on that in just a moment. Not getting in. He's come out and been pretty forceful at this point. He knows they're coming, and he's threatening to put the military, not reserves, but the military on the southern border. What are your thoughts on that?
We asked him to do just that last month. So he has been very patient. He has warned them, but if we don't enforce our laws, Paul, we have no country. We have no constitution. And number one priority is for our leader is to protect our country and its citizens. And that's what he's doing. And whether you are a Democrat, Republican, Independent, you have to side with safety here in the United States. And the Remembrance Project is the only organization in the country, and it's probably the world, that we're seeing, because people from other countries are reaching out to us wanting the Remembrance Project and the Stolen Lives quilt to go into their countries as well, because they're having the same types of problems, especially in the UK, with illegal aliens there. But yes, I encourage President Donald Trump to place the troops in the border, double the ICE agents and the immigration, the Border Patrol. But we also are asking all of your listeners there, Paul, to please recognize the National Remembrance Day for Americans killed by illegal aliens. This day we've recognized this day for 7 years now, and it is the first Sunday of each November. So come November 4th, we are going to have another event here in Washington, D.C., in Lafayette Park, near the White House, to remember and honor our fellow fallen Americans, because they are permanently separated from their loved ones, and they should still be here if only our laws were enforced and politicians placed American lives first.
That's exactly right, putting American lives first. So you said this. You said this earlier, that you have these leaders from these countries. They met with Vice President Pence, and then about maybe not getting as much U.S. money. And then they send this, this force. And so I got this text right after you said that, and somebody has a question: Are we paying Honduras not to invade the United States, or if we stop paying them our taxpayer dollars, they send an invasion force? I mean, think about that. What other response would any leader have but to then send troops to the border?
Exactly. And again, President Trump has tweeted that no more money will be given to, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador if they do not stop and come pick up their people and return them to their countries. That's exactly what's going on. And you were talking earlier in your show on the left. This is not a matter, an issue about politics, Paul. We're so far beyond that. If we don't
bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, here we are. Welcome back. Thanks so much for being with us. Okay, so we're probably going to have more of President Trump's speech later in the program, I've got a feeling. But I mean, listen, the people are jumping to conclusion. I mean, listen, nobody believes anybody anymore. Nobody believes anybody, and that's dangerous. But there are plenty of arguments as to why nobody believes in it. I mean, you can list a ton of arguments as to why we should be skeptical. Now, I think that skepticism, especially at this point, when you have so many examples of being intentionally deceived by your government, by the media, by everything else. Hang in there, folks. Hang in there. This is, that you hear it all the time, the most important election of your lifetime. Certainly, I mean, got to be one of the most important midterms ever. I mean, 2010 was an important midterm, but this is very important because in terms of what they're going to do to the country if the Democrats win, what they're going to do, and what the media will do right along with them all of a sudden, see, you got Devin Nunes. You got courageous Congressman Devin Nunes, who's actually in there, in the thick of things. He knows what really has gone on. He knows what the last administration really did, and the mainstream media doesn't believe him. Oh, you're just a partisan. But if Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters get control of that Congress, they're going to claim that they're the most legitimate investigators since untouchable, since Elliot Ness. These guys are the Elliot Nesses of America, and it's going to be finally we got accountability back. It's going to be awful. It's going to be awful. There are reports that Republican turnout in the early vote is outpacing Democrats. That has the Democrats very, very, very concerned. Folks, you got to go out. You got to vote. Listen. This caravan nonsense, this open borders philosophy, this constant anti-Trump. It's Trump's fault that all these pipe bombs got sent. It's his fault because he has rallies and he's passionate about about what he says. So it's his fault. Again, we've been here before. They tried to blame Oklahoma City bombing on Rush Limbaugh. It's ridiculous. Go out, make your vote, call your friends. Call your friends in every state. You got anybody in any relative that doesn't live in Arkansas, you got to call them, especially if it's in a state like California, especially if it's in a state like Indiana or West Virginia or South Dakota or any of them. Just make sure you call your relatives and you get them to the polls and assuming that they agree with you, right? maybe don't call your relatives if they disagree with you. Just wait till Thanksgiving, and then you can have like a gloat fest at the dinner table. Telephone number is 870-275-9799. Jackie on Facebook writing, voted on Monday. Good for you, Jackie. Good for you. Dennis on Facebook, me too. That's not an ironic me too. He's just saying he voted as well. Folks, coming up at the top of the hour, we're going to be talking with candidate for State Representative, District 11, Republican Ricky Lattimore will be in the studio with us. Then at the bottom of the next hour, I've got sat down with the president of the Club for Growth, David McIntosh, yesterday. We'll be playing that for you about the importance of the midterm elections. And so you want to stay tuned for all of that today. All right. Let's go to conduitnews.com, shall we? Over at conduitnews.com, we have a new development when it comes to the controversy surrounding Democrat Greg Leding, who basically, it looked like he almost accosted Republican candidate Dawn Clements. That's what it looked like to me. She was obviously threatened. She was backing up. She was trying to reclaim her personal space, and Greg Leding just couldn't control his anger. It was certainly a weak moment. Now, over at Conduit News, there's a new story update responses to Greg Leding's assault on opponent Dawn Clements. Yeah, I think assault is a good word to use here. Conduit News published late last night a shocking video showing Democrat State Representative Greg Leding assaulting his opponent for State Senate, Republican Dawn Clements. Now, both candidates and the Arkansas Republican Party have issued responses to Leding's assault on Clements. Republican State Senate candidate Dawn Clements' response was this. Last night, at the conclusion of the debate on the University of Arkansas campus, my opponent resulted to vulgar and intimidating threats, of which I do have from his own Facebook Live feed last night along with the audio. As a conservative woman and candidate for the Arkansas Senate, I will not stand for this, and I refuse to be intimidated by my opponent. Unfortunately, Representative Greg Leding has chosen to take the lowly road. Unlike Representative Leding, I will continue to treat my opponent with dignity and respect because it is our jobs and public servants to set our jobs as public servants to set the example. I will treat all of my constituents in a dignified way, as not to desecrate the office to which we seek. A person's political affiliation or way they vote has no bearing on the need for respect. Furthermore, I think all women should be believed, including this conservative woman. When you encroached on my personal space, pointed your finger in my face, and placed your hands on me, you demeaned the office you currently hold and the one in which you seek. I'm aware that you issued a statement that I was talking to you and you were apologizing to me. That is a bold-faced lie. Unprovoked, you were pointing your finger and yelling at me, using vulgar language, intimidating me, blocking me, and threatening me. You choose to act this way, and it shows everyone in this district that when somebody disagrees with you, your response is to attack and not to listen. You are not interested in finding a solution once you engage in such a manner. This or that is unacceptable. I do, in fact, have questions for you about your half-hearted, lukewarm apology. What exactly are you sorry for? Are you sorry for attacking me verbally with vulgar comments? Are you sorry for pointing your finger in my face and yelling and using the F word? Are you sorry for jumping on the stage, staring me down, bowing up in my face? Are you sorry for threatening me and blocking me from leaving? Are you sorry for driving me back, invading my space? Are you sorry for raising your hand to my face and threatening me by grabbing my shoulder? Or are you sorry you just got caught on your Facebook live feed last night intimidating a conservative woman? The bottom line is that everyone now knows that you will resort to intimidation and threatening behavior when someone disagrees with you. Would you treat me the same way if I was a man? Are you simply unable to work with those who you disagree with? Is this any indication as to why your record in the House for 8 years is a failing 30%? So that's the statement from Don Clements. Now, here, this is an interesting photo. Look at this photo. I don't know if you can zoom in on that for our audience. I'm not sure when this was written, but I imagine this was probably written soon after the event, so that Don Clements could document exactly what was said, right? Because you can't really hear what was said. You can hear something about lying and an accusation of lying. But this is kind of a script, right? So Greg, immediately after the debate, this is Don Clements' recollection of what was said during that video that you can see him intimidating her. Greg, you need to stop lying about my record, pointing his finger at me from the floor. Don, why would I lie about you? Greg, you're effing lying, pointing his finger and yelling. Greg, have you seen the videos? Greg Leding goes on, allegedly, you've been lying about my record, yelling and pointing his finger. Don Clements, you have a record you have to defend. You can't, you just can't get past that. Okay? Then Greg jumps onto the stage and bows up in my face, very threatening. Greg, you're an effing liar. Don Clements writes, I'm moving away, and he blocks my movement. Don, I'm not going to listen to you say effing anymore. It doesn't matter what you say to me. Greg uses his body to move me backwards, very threatening. He raises his hand to my face. Greg, you're going to be defeated. He puts his hand on my shoulder. I will see to that. Don Clements says, we'll see what happens on election night. Greg Leding, quote, this is a quote attributed to Greg, we damn sure will. Greg storms off stage. So in light of that, let's pause there. Let's go back and watch the video, shall we? For those of you that are watching over at conduitnews.com or facebook.com/conduitnews or the YouTube channel or on live stream. This is what it sounded like. Be easy on the volume because it's not, you can't really hear anything for our terrestrial audio audience, but we can kind of walk through this now that we have this script here, and you can kind of see what's going on. Take a listen. Let's watch this. So Greg walks up, points his finger, and that's, you're an effing liar right there. Okay, now he comes up on the stage, bows up, and then blocks her from moving there. Somewhere in here there's another you're an effing liar. Now he's backing her up, forcing her to back up. She's going to back up one more time. See that one step right there? And now puts his hand on her shoulder, and I guess that was the, I'm going to see that you're defeated. I will see to that. Anyway, so this exchange has pretty much been it's been very talked about. If you go to Twitter, you look in the ARPX hashtag or the ARLEG hashtag, It's extremely. Republicans are pretty outraged about this. The Democrats are on defensive that they would do something like this. Representative Greg Leding released the following statement following the interaction at last night's candidate forum. He writes this: "After the forum, I left the stage. My opponent made some additional comments to me, so I hopped back up on stage, joining her at its edge. I've worked very hard to serve all the people who live in the district I represent, work that has consistently included legislation and advocacy for women, teachers, students, firefighters, working families." This is exactly what a 1990s politician would say. You got people think I'm anti-women. I've worked really hard for women. Yeah, I'm a big fan of women's rights. I love women. I really do. And that work's been misrepresented in this campaign. I was frustrated, but it's not acceptable to act on that. I apologize to Mrs. Clements. In these closing weeks of the campaign, I'll continue to hold public events, keep walking door to door, and keep working hard for all Arkansans. The Republican Party of Arkansas issued a statement as well. On Twitter, the Arkansas GOP, "This is completely unprofessional behavior by Greg Leding, shaking his finger, invading her space, and putting his hand on her without consent. This is sad. Arkansas Democrats, get your candidate under control." Executive Director of the RPA, Sarah Jo Reynolds of the Republican Party, she recorded a video calling on Leding to apologize. Numerous elected officials have responded on social media denouncing Leding's assault and offering support for Don Clements, including U.S. Senator Tom Cotton and Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin, because it's ridiculous. That's why. Because why would anyone treat their opponent like that? You certainly wouldn't treat him like that if you knew the camera. There's no way if Greg Leding would never have done that if he thought cameras were on him. He would have never done that. If that was an actual debate, he would have never treated her that way. Very threatening. I've talked to women before that have been in that situation with male politicians before, who are on differing sides, and you'd be amazed at how many stories there are of male politicians using their physical their physical advantage, their size advantage, as a way to bow up and intimidate. And it's a crutch, right? In a way, like, because let's say that the woman, okay, is more conservative than you, or let's say the woman has you beat on your argument and you don't like it, and so what do, right? You kind of, man might tend to rely on like a defense mechanism, like I'll just intimidate you into submission because I'll scare you. I mean, it's really a tactic that's based on fear. Like I will physically frighten you.
I'm just surprised anyone would act like this in a public setting, like pre or post debate or post
debate,
anything like that, because in this age, everyone has cameras on their phone, and for someone who's in the public eye like Greg Leding, just always assume you have a camera on you. Just always assume that, because odds are you do.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just assume that, and that way, one, it keeps you out of trouble if you assume that, because there are things that you will do in your private life that you won't necessarily want on camera. Just don't do it.
Right.
And it just keeps you sober-minded in the sense of, man, I don't want this out there if I act stupid, so don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he obviously did not take your advice, Joe. That's very clear. Hey, we were telling you the other day that the biggest debate as to whether or not, the casinos are likely going to come here. I mean, you got these tribes pouring all this money in. The biggest debate on the casino amendment is whether or not which casino, Pope County or Jefferson County, is going to be able to name their casino the Elizabeth Warren DNA Heritage Gaming Center. And so, that's a big decision. Which casino is going to be named after Elizabeth Warren? Maybe both of them, But I'll tell you this. I got to thinking this morning. I was like, you know what? Arkansas already has full-fledged casinos. Did you know this? Arkansas already has full-fledged casinos. Yeah. Yeah, it's called insurance companies. And guess what? They fleece the taxpayer. You think you're getting ahead, but the house always wins. Yeah, we already got insurance companies. I'm sorry, casinos. They're called insurance companies. We're going to take a break. Back in just a moment.
If you believe the Second Amendment protects your right to defend your home with a firearm, where do you turn if the government confiscates your gun? To the courthouse. The Founding Fathers created your Seventh Amendment right to a civil jury to protect your freedoms. The courthouse is where you fight the overreaching hand of government. And the Brad Hendricks Law Firm is where the fight starts. Call the Brad Hendricks Law Firm at 501-221-0444. The Brad Hendricks Law Firm in Little Rock, standing ready using the Seventh Amendment to protect your Second Amendment rights. Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Stop and think about what we're doing here and place American first and do what's best, just like President Donald Trump is doing. He has the best interests of America in mind. And, understand that the entire Democrat Party will completely resist him no matter what he says. Many of the Republicans will so as well. But, I can't tell people how to vote or who to vote for, but you certainly can vote for those individuals who will emulate and work with President Donald Trump, and that is placing our security, our national security, and the safety and the economic success of this country first and foremost. If America goes down, Paul, we have nowhere to go. We are the beacon of freedom. So this is what's at stake here. This is much more than politics. This is about a survival of America.
Yeah, it's echoing President Ronald Reagan. So they're in Mexico now, this caravan.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back. If you're just joining us, we've had a pretty good hour. We just talked about this State Representative Greg Leding controversy, and how he treated his female Republican opponent. You can check out those stories at conduitnews.com. There's an update on that if you just missed the last segment where you have a statement from Don Clements. You also have her version of what was said during that conversation that you can't really hear. You can hear a few things, but you can't really make out exactly what they're saying, but you can definitely tell that Greg Leding is angry. So that's up at conduitnews.com right now. I want to go back to this pipe bomb situation where you have these Democrats who have received pipe bombs in the mail. FBI, obviously is on this, launching an investigation. Same time, by the way, we didn't talk about this. The stock market did not have a good day yesterday either. But the media, of course, they're saying that these pipe bombs would have never happened if Donald Trump wasn't president of the United States. That's essentially what they're saying. If Donald Trump didn't have rallies, if Donald Trump didn't have strong language, if Donald Trump didn't motivate the base, that there's somebody out there who was like, you know what I'll do? This would be good. Donald Trump would really be proud of me if I sent pipe bombs to all these Democrat officials. This is somehow Trump's fault. They're saying that Donald Trump is leading the hate parade, that he's dividing the country. Of course, last night at the Wisconsin rally, and we played this for you earlier in this hour, President Trump began the rally saying that the federal government is conducting an extensive investigation and we will find those responsible. We will bring them to justice. Any acts or threats of political violence are an attack on our democracy itself, and that no nation can succeed that tolerates violence or the threat of violence as a method of political intimidation, coercion, or control. We all know that. Trump added that such conduct must be fiercely opposed and firmly prosecuted. More broadly, he went on, there is much we can do to bring our nation together. For example, those engaged in the political arena must stop treating political opponents as being morally defective. Again, I have to emphasize this. So much of our discourse with the left versus the right in this country at this point assumes that the other person is immoral. The other person is an evil person. And I really think that it's the left that does this more than the right. Right now, I mean, you can't even have a conversation about, some of Trump's policies or the things that we're trying to do, because the left approaches the argument that they think that they're already better than you. Well, I'm better than you. Let's get that out of the way, and now let me tell you why you're wrong. And that didn't used to be the case in this country. And because if you approach the situation of political disagreement with the idea that I'm better than this person, then you don't have to listen to their arguments, right? And if their arguments, are actually good arguments and they derail your own arguments, well, you're a better person than they are, so you have to be right. And that's what's going on right now on the left. That's what, and see, and the media is having a meltdown because Donald Trump didn't come out and said, it's my fault. The pipe bombs are my fault. And that's ridiculous. Number one, he's not going to do that. Number two, he went on to criticize the media in his statement. He said, let's see here. Trump said that no one should carelessly compare political opponents to historical villains like Hitler. I'm assuming that's what he means there, which is done quite often. It's got to stop. We should not mob people in public spaces or destroy public property. Kevin McCarthy had a boulder thrown through his window this week. Steve Scalise was shot and almost died at a baseball game. I want to remind you, last week Hillary Clinton said we will not be civil with these people. Eric Holder, a week before that, said when Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high, Michelle Obama's wrong. No, when they go low, we should kick them. There was also, wasn't there, I know there was a Ryzen or there was a powdery substance sent yesterday to either, was it CNN or somebody? They sent that, there was Ryzen recently that was sent to the White House or the Pentagon. That got no coverage. That got no coverage at all. And it's all Trump's fault. It's all his fault. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Here's where Trump offended the media last night. He said this: as part of the larger national effort to bridge our divides and bring people together, the media also have a responsibility to set a civil tone and to stop the endless hostility, and that oftentimes false attacks and stories. And this triggered the media. You have Jared Sexton. Trump warned the media tonight. He was saying if the negative coverage doesn't improve, we should expect more attacks. That's not what he said at all. Trump is turning these assassination attempts as a means to blame the media for the attacks and taking a swipe at mobs. This is political. It's using it as a means of offense, and it's disgusting. Listen, it's the Democrat. I'm telling you, man. The Democrat Party is the one doing the mob tactics, and everybody knew it. And everybody was convinced of it until yesterday. Yesterday, the media, they're able to say, no, the other side, because obviously the other side's sending pipe bombs. And so we're not the mob, you're the mob. And that's what they're now saying. And this is why I'm just telling you, nobody believes anybody anymore. And that's scary. That's really scary. Folks, we're going to be right back in about 6 minutes. Candidate for state representative Republican Ricky Lattimore will be with us. He's here in studio, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
We're 14 days until November 6th. Early voting starts today, in Arkansas and I think across the country as well. When are they going to get there? And I guess I'm like, how many days out of the election are they going to be there? They're going to be at the border. If President Trump then sends the military and activates them, CNN, everybody, we're going to have cameras there, and there's going to be this very tense atmosphere, I would imagine.
Right.
And what is that? I mean, can you imagine the powder keg that could potentially be?
Well, I think the American people are fed up. Let's look at on the flip side. If you don't have compassion for American children, we have a whole banners full of our stolen West Quote banners with American children killed. We have so many families that I can sit here and list, and we can sit here and talk about for hours the stories. And just last night I spoke to another family. This is an everyday thing for us where we're trying to keep up with the carnage, Paul, and we simply cannot. We have wonderful youth who are being killed by illegal aliens. We're bringing in more supposedly UACs, unaccompanied minors, here, unaccompanied children. I guess they changed that word to make it a little more heart-tugging, but who are here sitting next to our children in schools. These other kids came from chaos, and this is what they're bringing in the culture, and they're recruiting gang members, and that's why the uptick in the MS-13 gang membership and the violence. They're thumbing their noses to our laws and to its citizens. But you're right. What the media wants is that climax there at the border and the cameras. You bet they're going to be at the border with those cameras, every single news station, where they never came into the press conference room when President Trump was meeting with our families. They panned away.
Yes.
So this is the fake news has been exposed. These countries exposed for taking advantage of the generous American taxpayer. We have 500,000 American orphan children who need good homes and a better life. We have 13 million children who live in poverty and probably go to bed hungry. Let's clean our house and making sure that we're taking care of our children first before we start looking at the fake news and their cameras where they put women and children at the front. Pregnant women coming on this whole trek is completely ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah.
No woman who cared for their child would put themselves in that situation. Plus, you have parents sending their young daughters on birth control to cross the border with a coyote, knowing that they're going to be raped. What kind of people, what kind of character are these people coming from? Who are they? We don't need any more crime, Paul. We need to stop importing crime. We've got plenty of problems in Chicago and Detroit. Then why are we welcoming this chaotic group of people?
I completely agree. And, that's the whole point of having a sovereign nation, is being able to decide who gets to come and who doesn't get to come. And so that's a really good points that you're making. The left has been – oh, go ahead.
Our baseline, Paul, is that we do not have to allow anyone into our country, and that's what every American citizen has to think about. Our baseline is simply that. We don't have to allow anyone into our country. It's better, in my opinion, to be able to teach other countries to fish and how to take care and be able to, for their citizens, to force the kind of government that they're fleeing to, not to bring their problems here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're very generous, and we can help them there, and that's what we're doing. That's what President Trump is using this U.S. foreign aid to, as a way to try to make those countries be good leaders and, be good parents.
The left has been using this phrase for the last 18 months, and the phrase is this: influence the outcome of an election. I look at these seven, and this is an actual attempt to do that. This 7,000 caravan, that's what it actually looks like. This is an attempt to influence the outcome of an election. But don't expect any analysis like that from the mainstream media. They're going to sit on their moral high horse, and they're going to claim that Donald Trump is heartless and is a totalitarian for securing the border, because he's at the point now, unless these people are stopped, he's not going to back down. I mean, he's shown that multiple times. I saw somebody, even suggest that, hey, maybe you shut down, not only use the military.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. You can see we have in studio special guests. We got Republican candidate for state representative Ricky Lattimore is with us. Ricky, welcome to the program, sir.
Good to be here, Paul. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. So tell us about your race. First of all, tell us District 11. Where's District 11 at?
District 11 is in southeast Arkansas. It's Chico County, Desha County, and eastern parts of Ashley County.
Okay. And right now, you are who's the incumbent in that district? That's
the incumbent is Mark McElroy.
Yeah, McElroy. Yeah.
And
he's not running as a Democrat, is he?
No, he's not running as a Democrat. He was a three-term Democrat, and all of a sudden this year, he became an independent. I think he said he's too poor to be a Republican and too conservative to be.
Strange.
Yeah,
that's very strange.
Yeah.
So tell us about you, Ricky. Now, what do you do?
Well, I'm a full-time pastor. I pastor a church in Dermont. Been there 24 years. Also a four-term alderman, and so that's pretty much what I do. And I do a lot of ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Our church does a lot of ministry throughout the Delta.
So let me ask you this. I mean, there's a lot of people excited about this race. There's a lot of people that think that this could go. That you could turn this district red,
yeah.
And so why be a Republican? What does being a Republican mean to you?
Well, let me be honest with you. Most of my life, most all my life, as an adult, I was a Democrat, and a strong Democrat. But I saw the Democratic Party, if I can use this language, political language, move too far to the left, and it started affecting my values as a minister, as a Christian, and anything that does that, I have to look at that. And I was being convicted about some things that was going on with the Democratic Party, such as something that I had really paid attention to before, like I started in the last few years, but abortions, same-sex marriage, and I started seeing a lot of other things about me being a Democrat that looked like they wanted to keep the minority community so they can control them, so every election season that they can vote for them, and they wanted them to be dependent, or wanted us to be dependent on government more than saying we want good paying jobs so we can be able to live a life like every citizen would like to live and taking care of their family.
That's really powerful stuff, and I think there's a lot of people that have come to that conclusion as well. You mentioned abortion, same-sex marriage, but that last thing that you mentioned, Let me ask you this. What do you think of that Kanye West Donald Trump meeting? I mean, I thought there was a lot of truth in what Kanye was saying.
Well, number one, Kanye West is doing what nobody else want to do, and that's to meet with the President of the United States. It's a lot of people that have refused to go to the White House or said, I won't go to the White House just because they don't like Donald Trump. I feel that I don't care who the president is. I was taught to always respect the president and honor the president. You have an opportunity to go to the White House and talk to the president about issues. Go. And I don't think it was anything wrong with Kanye West going to the White House when everybody else is refusing to go. Mm-hmm. Somebody got to go. If I was called to go to the White House, even for the sake of argument, if I didn't like the President of the United States, if it meant me going to talk about issues, I'm going to talk to the president. So the media, the way it is now, the media, the Democratic Party, they use all that they can to cause division and misinterpret what a person is trying to do. And it's sad that an entertainer, he can get backlash because he's going to the White House telling people, talking to the president about the needs of the community. And one of the things I looked at in our community, he even mentioned Larry Hoover. Larry Hoover, a lot of people don't know who Larry Hoover is, but it's not too many people have went to the White House talking about freeing prisoners that speak on Larry Hoover, and they've been saying free Larry Hoover for years. Mm-hmm. But they look past that. So I don't think it's nothing wrong. I know there's nothing wrong with meeting president if you're going to talk about issues.
Well, he said, he was on Saturday Night Live, and, he talked about how, the welfare state, the way it is an effort to get people dependent, generational dependency on government, separating fathers from homes. In the White House, Kanye West then says, hey, look, racism is being used sometimes to control me, and it's not going to control me when sometimes people say that things are racist when maybe they're not. Do you see that as well? Is that something that you would agree with?
Well, people, especially in politics, have always, and I see it more on the Democratic side, when one is in power, one of the things that Democrats always try to use is an age-old situation going back to the Civil Rights Movement, race. And if I can get the people to believe that these Republicans are racist, and then also me as a black man, if I think different or I think we should approach something different, we are Uncle Toms. We're enemies of the black community. So I agree with a lot of things that Kanye West has said.
Yeah.
I'm a product of low-income housings, and I see low-income houses in our area. I was affected by low-income houses, and low-income houses is made to keep you where you are, and that was mostly given to us by the Democrats. And you never seen low-income houses in white communities. And they're always saying that the Republicans are prejudiced, but when I was with the Democratic Party, I saw just as much racism within the Democratic Party than I've seen in the Republican Party.
Wow.
And so I think if we kick back and just sit back and start looking, instead of just looking at one news outlet, CNN is really, and that's the truth of the matter, have messed us up, because in most black households, That's the only channel.
Really, they're watching. People are watching CNN.
And I can say that because if I go into a home, that's what's on. Even in my own family's home, my mother's home, that's what's on. They're not looking at Fox. They're not looking at both Fox, CNN, and all the other outlets, but they're taking what a news outlet is saying, which I remember when you were being interviewed by a news outlet such as CNN or something like that, they would never get themselves involved in the political process. They would just give the question and the answer from the person who they're interviewing. But now they're saying this person is like that, this person's like this, and I think that really have divided our country.
Yeah, no doubt. It is a division, and we're talking with Ricky Lattimore. He's a Republican. He's a candidate for state representative in District 11. And I want to say there's a national poll, and there's several of these, but one of them showed that black approval of President Donald Trump last year was at 15%. This year is at 30%. I mean, those are huge swings, huge numbers. And I think that might, and there's a walk-away movement on Twitter where people are saying, hey, listen, I got to walk away from the Democrat Party because they're not even the party of the working man anymore. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I got a good feeling, Ricky. I think there's a chance that that your district could go red. They're going to vote for you.
Well, this is where I feel about this. There's a lot of things I like about Donald Trump, and there's a lot of President Trump, and there are some things I can't say a lot, but there are some things I don't like. One of the things I do love is him cutting taxes for businesses and allowing industries to come back to America, and so we can have better jobs, good paying jobs, and that will kind of alleviate low income because people want to work and they want to make a good living. And that's what I like about when you talk about steel mills coming back and automotive companies coming back. That should make everybody happy when they were leaving at first, and now they're coming back. So I like his way of doing business and bringing jobs back to America so everybody can have an opportunity to make a good, wholesome living. And that's what we should be looking at. I think sometimes we look too much at the individual and we base our opinion about sometimes how people can misinterpret what a person is saying, and the news can help do that. But if we just sit back and look at the good, and instead of always pointing at the bad, we'll see that this president is really trying to do some things to help everybody.
How important is freedom of speech to you as a minister? There's always been a threat of IRS. You'll lose your tax exemption if you decide to preach from the pulpit, on current events and issues and what people should do or think, politically. Is that a concern? Do you feel that that's something that's kind of oppressive and the government should switch that policy?
Well, I think a person, especially man of the cloth, he have a lot of influence, and there are certain things we cannot say as ministers behind the pulpit, and I have my reservations on how much we also could say, but I know for a fact ministers themselves, like this certain association, Baptist association that I used to be a part of, they have used their platform to keep some parishioners from voting for me simply because I'm a Republican. And they have barred me from speaking and giving my point of view on my issues and things like that. So I think, it's tough because of some things that we can't say and we can say. And my opinion on that is that you have to do it, whatever you do it decent and in order.
Yeah.
when it comes down to ministers, because politicians, especially the Democrats, have always used pastors, especially black pastors, to reach their congregation.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So we have to be mindful of that. So I have my little reservations about that. I think it should be some stipulations, simply because since I have ran this race, the people that's most that has the influence of people have been ministers, and they have used their platform as a pastor behind the roster that said negative things about me just to vote for the other person.
Yeah, and that certainly is unfortunate, and I would love to talk to some of them and ask them some questions, honestly, and see how their feelings or how they justify doing something like that. We're talking with Ricky Lattimore. We're about out of time, Ricky. I appreciate you coming this way and spending time with us. So generally, I just would like to know from you, generally, why do you think you can make you're the better choice? Why do you think you're the better choice? And generally, why did you decide to run for this?
I decided to run because I was really led, to tell the truth, be led by God. It was most people have rumored that since we had joined, and I don't know anything about this, I used to be part of Regular Baptist Association, but I'm now part of Arkansas Baptist State Convention, that, quote unquote, the white people got me running for office. And that's far from the truth. I told you why earlier that I'm running. But I'm feeling I'm a better candidate because I spent most of my life advocating for Southeast Arkansas. And now I'm in the position to help people in Southeast Arkansas like never before. I've been endorsed by the Rockefellers. I've been endorsed by the governor. And with his plan and with the name of the Rockefellers, I believe I can do better than both of the candidates, which don't have any endorsement from any leading people in the state of Arkansas. 75% of the House is conservative. It's nothing nobody else going to be able to do, independent or Democrat. I'm that person that can make things happen. And I do it now. I go to industries now, trying to get them to come down and look at us for job creation and stuff like that. I feel that I'm the candidate on November the 6th, if people can vote for me, that I can help our area. And that's an opportunity that we haven't had in a long time. And I pray and I hope that people look beyond the R and start looking at the individuals. And that's what I hope for, that because I'm not married to a party, I'm married to what's right. I just happen to be a Republican, and I'm proud to be a Republican, where I am, and all I want to do is serve the people.
Republican Ricky Lattimore, it's great to meet you, sir. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Folks, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back here in just a moment.
Cross the border with a coyote, knowing that they're going to be raped. What kind of people, what kind of character are these people coming from? Who are they? We don't need any more crime, Paul. We need to stop importing crime. We've got plenty of problems in Chicago and Detroit. Then why are we welcoming this chaotic group of people?
I completely agree. And, that's the whole point of having a sovereign nation, is being able to decide who gets to come and who doesn't get to come. And so that's a really good points that you're making. The left has been – oh, go ahead.
Our baseline, Paul, is that we do not have to allow anyone into our country, and that's what every American citizen has to think about. Our baseline is simply that. We don't have to allow anyone into our country. It's better, in my opinion, to be able to teach other countries to fish and how to take care and be able to, for their citizens, to force the kind of government.
Let's face it, times are tough for the Arkansas General Assembly. They're all waiting for the spotlight exposing public corruption to end, so they won't be under so much scrutiny. And during this time, what if you're a legislator and you need money? What if you're slapped with a huge expense? What if your check for consultant services is late this month? Or maybe you just need extra cash now until payday. When that happens, you can't wait. Hi, I'm Bobby Blackmail for the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank, your trusted source to over 135 lenders to get you short-term cash fast. Use the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank today, and you can have up to $12,500 cash in your checking account tomorrow. Dried up bribes no longer coming from Medicaid entities? Handled. Extra cash until your hopeful acquittal? Done. And you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get extra cash. Just be an elected official and be comfortable with the status quo, and we'll connect you with a fellow legislator who is ready to loan. It's quick and easy. And don't worry if you can't make the payments, because the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank is designed to help you get through these tough economic times. There are other ways you can pay off your debt, like by voting the way the establishment wants, or by rewarding some with committee chairmanships. So forget about overdraft fees and the spirit of covetousness that sometimes overwhelms the best of lawmakers. Just remember, the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank for short-term cash between colleagues when you need it fast.
Some transactions have long-term consequences.
Paul Harrell, parody.
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks. Welcome back to the program. Hey, you know, there's another Talk Business and Politics poll. They conducted one giant poll, and they're dripping these stories out. But for those of you listening out of Little Rock on 101.1, The Answer this morning, obviously there's a lot of people in Little Rock that are undecided, according to this poll, about who to vote for Little Rock's mayor, which is interesting. So you've got, if the election of mayor of Little Rock were being held today, and the candidates were Glenn Schwartz, State Representative Warwick Sabin, Frank Scott Jr., Baker Curris, and Vincent Tolliver, for whom would you vote? Talk Business and Politics reports that 1.5% said that they would vote for Glenn Schwartz. 22% said they would vote for State Representative Warwick Sabin. 18% said Frank Scott Jr., 22% said Baker Curris, 3% Vincent Tolliver, and 33.5% don't know who they would vote for in the Little Rock mayor's race. That's interesting. I'll just remind you of it. Now I'm just going to also say this. If 33.5% don't know, how many of them, when they see State Representative Warwick Sabin on the ballot, are just going to go ahead and pick him because he's the one that's already got a title? That's certainly possible. But I'll just remind you. I'll remind you. Remember John Woods, convicted felon John Woods, in an ethics amendment that was deceptive. You know, it raised salaries, increased term limits, and actually hurt small businesses when it comes to their participation in the political process. Yeah, well, it was Warwick Sabin who's the sponsor of that in the House. So, want to keep that in mind. You definitely want to keep that in mind. Plus he's a Democrat. So, anyway. Hey, wasn't that a great interview that we did? Wasn't that great to listen to Ricky Lattimore there? Just talk about, how he feels and why he's a Republican, and the reason he's a Republican, from what I gathered it was a lot of social issues and things like that. And you heard what he said. He felt convicted. He just couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't be a Democrat anymore. Now, there's a lot of people who are like that. A lot of people. I'm reading on Facebook here. Some people saying Skip on Facebook saying, I support Ricky Lattimore. I've known him and his family for 2+ years. Paula on Facebook is thanking Ricky for coming on the show. So anyway, telephone number 870-275-9799. Coming up at 7:33, going to let you listen to the interview with the president of the Club for Growth, David McIntosh. Yes, the president of the Club for Growth, David McIntosh. He sat down with us yesterday, and I recorded the interview. I'm going to let you listen to it, and then, of course, it's going to be up on YouTube and Conduit News later in the day. This headline is disturbing. We have the Little Rock Diocese is revealing 26 more abuse cases when it comes to the pedophile priests, the sexual abusing of our young kids by clergy in the Catholic Church. This is a huge scandal, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Again, you want to know what the Catholic Church's problem is with these abuse scandals? Is that nothing is being done. And I know there may be people trying to do something now, but just hear me out. I'm 34 years old. I was born in 1984. And in my lifetime, when the Catholic Church is in the headlines, you're not surprised at what the headline is. That's a bad thing. Like, that is, you understand how to try to quantify just how bad of a reputation they have, and yet it just continues to, this organization just continues to exist, and they're just, shuffling priests around and trying to hide what it is they've done. And I think that's why the government is finally getting involved, saying, we're going to prosecute you people and put some of you in jail.
Cross the border with a coyote, knowing that they're going to be raped. What kind of people, what kind of character are these people coming from? Who are they? We don't need any more crime, Paul. We need to stop importing crime. We've got plenty of problems in Chicago and Detroit. Then why are we welcoming this chaotic group of people?
I completely agree. And, that's the whole point of having a sovereign nation, is being able to decide who gets to come and who doesn't get to come. And so that's a really good points that you're making. The left has been – go ahead.
Our baseline, Paul, is that we do not have to allow anyone into our country. And that's what every American citizen has to think about. Our baseline is simply that. We don't have to allow anyone into our country. And it's better, in my opinion, to be able to teach other countries to fish and how to take care, and be able to, for their citizens, to force the kind of government that they're fleeing to, not to bring their problems here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're very generous, and we can help them there, and that's what we're doing. That's what President Trump is using this U.S. foreign aid to, as a way to try to make those countries be good leaders and, be good parents.
The left has been using this phrase for the last 18 months. And the phrase is this: influence the outcome of an election. I look at these and this is an actual attempt to do that. This 7,000 caravan, that's what it actually looks like. This is an attempt to influence the outcome of an election. But don't expect any analysis like that from the mainstream media. They're going to sit on their moral high horse, and they're going to claim that Donald Trump is heartless and is a totalitarian for securing the border, because he's at the point now, unless these people are stopped, he's not going to back down. I mean, he's shown that multiple times. I saw somebody, even suggest that, hey, maybe you shut down, not only use the military to secure the border, but you also just shut down the legal crossing. Just absolutely shut it down, say nobody in, nobody out for a period of time, which we did do in 1985 after one of our federal agents was killed at the border.
Right, exactly. We have to do this. I'm from Texas originally. We're here in Washington, D.C. now. It's very important that we are here looking over the shoulder of these politicians, and I can tell you that the people will save this country, because we're going to band together and do what's right. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and that's why the walk-away movement has picked up and taken hold here across the country, because they're seeing that this is not about politics or parties. This is about the survival of America. And if you take a look at what's going on in the streets, Paul, with the Antifa,
the intersection
and how they
of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
A young man verbally attacked the widow of a fallen police officer.
All right, so real quick, I'm going to get to this interview with the president of Club for Growth here in just a moment, but I wanted to reiterate, we have the pipe bomb situation, which is absolutely so frustrating. And, they're going to catch whoever did this. And, of course, the media says that it's Donald Trump's fault that the pipe bombs were in the mail. And I can't help but ask myself the question, who has the most to gain from this whole situation? Here's what President Donald Trump said about it first thing at the rally in Wisconsin last night. It was a big rally. Listen.
Thousands of loyal, hardworking American patriots who, by the way, gave President Trump a win. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Credible people. I want to begin tonight's rally by addressing the suspicious devices and packages that were mailed to current and former high-ranking government officials. My highest duty, as you know, as president, is to keep America safe. That's what we talk about. That's what we do. The federal government is conducting an aggressive investigation, and we will find those responsible, and we will bring them to justice, hopefully very quickly. Any acts or threats of political violence are an attack on our democracy itself. No nation can succeed that tolerates violence or the threat of violence as a method of political intimidation, coercion, or control. We all know that. Such conduct must be fiercely opposed and firmly prosecuted. We want all sides to come together in peace and harmony. We can do it. We can do it. We can do it. It'll happen. More broadly, there's much we can do to bring our nation together. For example, those engaged in the political arena must stop treating political opponents as being morally defective. Have to do that. The language of moral condemnation and destructive routine, these are arguments and disagreements that have to stop. No one should carelessly compare political opponents to historical villains, which is done often. It's done all the time. Got to stop. We should not mob people in public spaces or destroy public property. There is one way to settle our disagreements. It's called peacefully at the ballot box. That's what we want. That's what we want.
This statement
as part of a larger
drives the
national
media
effort
nuts.
to bridge our divides and bring people together, the media also has a responsibility to set a civil tone and to stop the endless hostility and constant negative and oftentimes false attacks and stories. Have to do it. Have to do it. They've got to stop. Bring people together. We're just 13 days away
All right, stop.
from a very, very...
Yeah, President Trump does not kowtow to the media. The media wanted him to go out yesterday and say, my fault, my bad, I'm the reason why the pipe bombs were sent, and he didn't do it. As a matter of fact, he said, listen, the media sets an uncivil tone. Essentially what he's saying is he's, telling another side of the story. Hey, look, there's a lot of blame to go around. You got Maxine Waters, you got Eric Holder, you got Hillary Clinton saying we will not be civil with the other side, okay? You have Kevin McCarthy has a boulder thrown through his office. You have Steve Scalise who was shot at a baseball game by a Bernie Sanders supporter, okay? Like, there is clearly another side of this story. And so what does the media do in response to that? They say, well, President Trump essentially said that the media should expect more violence if we don't do what he says we should do. That's not at all what he said. See, you guys know, people at CNN know exactly what they're doing. They're very, the Democrat Party's very livelihood is at stake in this election. And you know what? Just read between the lines. That's all I can tell you guys is read between the lines of what's going on, and we'll see. We'll see who this. We'll see who it was. I'm curious. Who was the person that coordinated and sent all of these pipe bombs to all of these Democrat officials? I can't help but notice. You had the caravan story. The caravan story was 7,000 people coming to, and you know what? Louis Gohmert and others were saying, I think George Soros is the one. Providing restrooms and feeding this 7,000-person caravan of this illegal invasion, this foreign invasion that's coming to the United States. It's George Soros. Oh, and then on Monday, George Soros gets a pipe bomb. Then yesterday, the rest of them get pipe bombs. Huh. All right, so phone number is 870-275-9799. Folks, I had the privilege of sitting down with the president of the Club for Growth, Mr. David McIntosh, yesterday. And we talked about the importance of the midterm elections and you getting everybody you know across this country out to the polls to vote. And I would, also clarify if they agree with you and you're a conservative. Here's what that interview sounded like. I recorded this yesterday. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. We've got a special treat on the line with us. I want you to welcome to the program for the first time. We've got the president of the Club for Growth, Mr. David McIntosh, is on the line with us. David, welcome to the program, sir.
Pleasure to be with you, Paul. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I wanted to have you on, and I really appreciate the opportunity to have you on, the head of a great organization, standing for the principles of constitutional government and individual freedom. How do you see the political landscape right now in the context of the midterm elections that are coming up in, just a week or so? What are the stakes right now for the country?
I think they're huge stakes right now. What we've seen happen for the last 2 years is the Democrats and very liberal Democrats that turned into a mob for the Kavanaugh hearing, trying to tear apart the Trump administration and Congress, getting things done like repealing Obamacare and cutting taxes. And that momentum was cresting. What the Kavanaugh hearings really did it, woke up Republicans that supported President Trump, said we want to change Washington, and they realized this election is just as important as the 2016 presidential election to make sure that we can keep that momentum going. And we're starting to see in race after race where the extreme left has been attacking Republican candidates like French Hill in Arkansas and 40 or 50 other members around the country. Now the Republican voters are standing up and saying enough is enough. We're going to come out and support our guys who are supporting the agenda for continuing economic growth, continuing with more tax cuts, continuing to stop the government regulations coming from Washington. So I see a counter wave coming, and it'll all come down in the next 2 weeks as to which group is able to get more people to the polls.
I think you're right. I think it's a counter wave as well. I think it started with Kavanaugh. I think the news cycle right now with the 7,000 illegal immigrants heading our way, or they will be illegal immigrants. Well, they're already illegal. They're in Mexico. It's our whiteboard this week behind us, as I've been broadcasting, says foreign invasion. Let me ask you this. Again, we're talking with David McIntosh, the president of the Club for Growth. You can find out more, clubforgrowth.org. Speaking of French Hill in his race, in a lot of these races where you have Democrats trying to unseat Republicans in red states, like Arkansas. Arkansas is a red state. His opponent, Clark Tucker, though, tries or at least attempts to try to distance himself from Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The fact of the matter is, if Democrats were to take control of the House, Nancy Pelosi's raised a whole lot of money, and she's going to be the Speaker again. And, Americans need to realize that.
And what everybody has to point out is that first vote for who's going to be Speaker is the one that matters most. And so even if somebody has served the country in the military, seems more conservative on issues, when it comes right down to it, if they can vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker, they're voting against Trump, they're voting against conservative issues, they're voting against freedom, basically. And that's what it comes down to in each of these House races. Who will control Congress in the next 2 years? Will it be a Congress that will actually be more conservative than the last one? I think they'll be able to get more done because we'll have more seats in the Senate, for one thing. But will it be the conservative Republican group, or will it be this arch-liberal mob that we saw come out for the Kavanaugh hearing that basically want to conduct war on everything that President Trump is trying to do?
And those one of those forces, David, I think, that are conducting a war on everything the president wants to do is the media. How powerful, in your opinion, is the mainstream media? Do you think that maybe if they had covered President Trump fairly, I don't think the Democrats would have a chance of taking back the House?
Clearly, their coverage is totally oriented towards the Democrats and promoting their message. In the mainstream media, CNN and MSNBC lead the way, but each of the networks does it as well. Fox News presents a more balanced the one that is favorable to the president and his agenda. But the rest of them, it's very much an effort to present the argument that what's going on in Washington is bad and not working. Now, fortunately, folks have figured that out at this point. There's enough information there through the internet and on different channels that the people they get it. They get that they're being sold a point of view, and they have the ability to go sort things out and find out what's really happening. But as you pointed out, big news events make a huge difference. The Kavanaugh hearing woke everybody up that this was an angry mob that was trying to get power. The mob that's heading to the border tells everybody, hey, there is a serious problem with our immigration system when the country could be threatened to be overrun by 10,000 people just marching on our southern border. And that's not an issue the Club for Growth gets involved in, but I hear it from our members all the time, hey, what is happening? What is this signals going on? And I think you also see people looking at the tax cuts and saying, will the Democrats really repeal that? Does that mean my taxes are going to go back up? I'll get less take-home pay? Because the truth is, the middle-class tax cut that Congress passed has benefited basically all Americans. Maybe 10% didn't get a tax cut, but everybody else saw the taxes go down and their take-home pay go up.
And the Democrats refer to that as crumbs, and they want to raise your taxes. That's the other thing, The Democrats are wanting to raise people's taxes, and they want, like you said, I know you don't get involved in that, but they want policies like open borders, and they want this mob-like mentality, and it's because ever since 2016, the media was essentially lying to them the whole time, that Trump doesn't have a chance and Hillary, and then it didn't work out that way, and people just are seeing red, and they're getting to the point where I think the left is just extremely desperate. I mean, if the Tea Party in 2010 was behaving the way the left is now, America would have, the media and America rightly would reject it. It wouldn't even be a relevant point of view because we would reject somebody pounding on the Supreme Court doors because they didn't get their way with Justice, Brett Kavanaugh. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's absolutely right. It wouldn't have stirred up this mob. And frankly, there's some very far left rich guys, and the left calls it dark money, but it's their left dark money that are paying these protesters to organize and disrupt things. And you could tell that by how the disruptions occurred in the Kavanaugh process. One day there'd be nothing, and the next day everybody would show up at a certain time. That only happens if somebody's being paid to coordinate it.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I wanted to tell you about the Club for Growth is very well represented in Arkansas. Our chairman is Steve Stevens, who lives in Little Rock, and we've got a lot of members there. But my message to our members and to all of your listeners is don't take for granted that the red wave will happen. It'll only happen if they go out and actually vote in this election. We did some polling, and a lot of Tea Party members, conservatives, Club for Growth members said, yeah, we're going to be okay. The president said there's going to be a red wave. We don't have to worry about it. And then they might stay home on Election Day because they think somebody else will go out and vote. It'll only happen if you go out and vote, and that's true for each and every one of us.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of tight races, I want to remind everybody that you're also the former congressman from Indiana's 2nd Congressional District in Indiana. Now, Indiana's in play here in the Senate. Is that right? How do you feel that's going to shake out?
Very much so. So 6 years ago, they sent a Democrat, Joe Donnelly, to the Senate. He's voted, 95% with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi's agenda. He says he's a moderate when he's back home in Indiana, and then goes and votes with the far left when he's in Washington. Fortunately, we've got a good, strong candidate, a guy named Mike Braun, who ran his own business, set up a trucking business, and was very successful at it. He's challenging Donnelly, and right now they're tied at about 44, 45 points each. My instincts tell me that the undecideds are going to break for Braun. They know who Donnelly is, and they're not ready to vote for him. So I think that's a very strong potential pickup for the Republicans in the U.S. Senate.
That would be huge. A lot of people are thinking that the Republicans will gain seats in the Senate.
And then, of course, it's kind of some people say it's a toss-up with what's going on in the House. But I'm like you. I think everybody listening to the great radio stations that are carrying this program across the state of Arkansas, get people out locally to vote. But if you've got relatives in Indiana, if you've got relatives in these congressional districts in California, get them out. Tell them, call them. Just make sure, hey, I want to make sure you're going to vote, because that's how we're going to win this thing.
And if somebody, have relatives in Texas, there are 6 different seats that are up where we've got very good conservatives. Ted Cruz, he's now pulled ahead of this very radical liberal guy who goes by Beto. His real name's Robert Francis O'Rourke, but a far leftist, but Ted's doing well. Montana's another state where Matt Rosendale is challenging Tester. He's the guy who basically thwarted President Trump on the Veterans Administration, voted against Kavanaugh, against the tax cut bill, complete leftist, and then he goes home and, he's running ads showing himself in a bar having a beer, enjoying being in Montana, but what he doesn't show is when he's back in Washington, he's having dinner all the time with the lobbyists and whining and dining and taking their PAC checks.
Wow. All right, so that's Montana as well. Any Arkansans out there got any relatives in Montana? Just really, if you got relatives in their voters, call them wherever they are. Make
sure
it,
and
make
vote.
It go vote.
Be sure and vote. Yeah.
David McIntosh, president of the Club for Growth. First of all, it's great to meet you, sir. I appreciate the work that you're doing, and thank you so much for your time this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you, and thank all your listeners for what they do. They can join the Club for Growth for free at clubforgrowth.org. Just go to the website and sign up.
All righty. David McIntosh, best of luck to you, sir. Hopefully we'll all be celebrating on November 6th.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see this red wave materialize and have 2 more years of change in Washington.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
If you believe the Second Amendment protects your right to defend your home with a firearm, where do you turn if the government confiscates your gun? To the courthouse. The Founding Fathers created your 7th Amendment right to a civil jury to protect your freedoms. The courthouse is where you fight the overreaching hand of government. And the Brad Hendricks Law Firm is where the fight starts. Call the Brad Hendricks Law Firm at 501-221-0444. The Brad Hendricks Law Firm in Little Rock, standing ready using the 7th Amendment to protect your Second Amendment rights.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
During the 9/11 terrorist attacks, this is unacceptable behavior. And if you're wearing a MAGA hat supporting President Trump, then you can be, assaulted. This is just outrageous, this type of behavior. And know that these people do get paid. And we've known this for several years. The Remembrance Project started in 2009. And, our eyes were just eyes wide open when you pull that curtain back and you're seeing more and more on what's really taking place. How can you stop? Because no one else is doing this, and no one else sees some of the things that we do. Hearing some of the families, a mother who was denied to give her victim impact statement when her only son was murdered. And these are activist judges that President Trump actually created the Office of Voice last year, Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
I want to go back to this tweet here with all the news that's going on. And listen, a lot of people follow James Woods on Twitter. James Woods is an actor, right? He's also a conservative actor. He's a guy that he gets blackballed, basically, because he's a conservative in Hollywood. But if you follow James Woods on Twitter, you can tell that the man is extremely intelligent, and he sees what's going on, and it's just ridiculous. He's a guy who's definitely awake to the liberal media and what they're doing, right? So in the wake of this pipe bomb scandal, not scandal, I'm sorry, but in the wake of the pipe bomb, crisis, I guess. It was a crisis. The headlines yesterday, just when we got off the air and it started, it was just it was hard to keep up with. You didn't know that they had the San Diego Tribune. They said that they had a bomb, and then they didn't. They had to retract that. They said the White House had a bomb. They retracted that. There was a lot of misinformation going on before we actually knew who got a bomb and who didn't get a bomb. Well, the left's reaction was to immediately blame Trump. Well, this is clearly your fault because you hate the media. You didn't care about the Washington Post journalist who's really a Muslim Brotherhood sympathizer. They got chopped up in a Saudi Arabian embassy in Turkey. You say that the media is the enemy of the American people. That's why we're getting pipe bombs. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, but this is what they're going to do. We're 13 days outside of a midterm election that's going to determine the future of the Democrat Party forever. James Woods on Twitter addresses what people on the right's knee-jerk reaction was upon hearing of the pipe bomb crisis. It was this. James Wood writes, "The sending of bombs is a threat to the very foundation of our republic. That people would seriously suggest such an act could be a false flag stunt is inappropriate." He goes on to say, "It is sad, however, that Democrat mob behavior of late could prompt one to believe such a thing possible." James Woods here on Twitter using the double F word. You're not supposed to use that word ever because it's preposterous. You can't use that word. The double F word, you can't use it. Don't worry. It's a wordy dirt. It's exactly right. You never want to use the double F word in responding to any kind of crisis because you get labeled a conspiracy theorist and you just can't do it, right? But you know what some of my favorite movies are? Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes 2. That movie is centered around the double F word. Also, The Princess Bride. Rob Reiner, liberal Rob Reiner, but his finest film. "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." Inconceivable! Right. That's what's so funny. I switched glasses when your back was turned. Okay, so that movie, Princess Bride, is based on a double F word. False flag. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to say that. The double F word. And that's what certainly makes compelling stories, though, doesn't it? Yes, it does. The telephone number, 870-275-9799. You can call or text that number throughout the day. That's about all the time we have for today. Tomorrow is Johnny Cash Friday, so send me your requests. And let's see here, conduitnews.com. That's conduitnews.com. I want you to check out the updated story about State Representative Greg Leding and him bowling up on Republican woman, a candidate for State Senate, Don Clements. Go check that out. It's up at conduitnews.com. You can check out the video, and you can check out the responses from both Don Clements and Greg Leding. And here's what I have to say. You know, Greg Leding was very aggressive, right? Very aggressive towards Don Clements. I mean, it was very off-putting to see a man treat a woman like that, right? Greg Leding was so aggressive that if his own red flag laws were in existence, we could file a complaint against him to have a judge take his guns without any due process. So maybe that should happen. Folks, Arkansas, be safe, have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday.